coming. Yay, Robert Black. Woo! And Paul Andriscin.
That's close, yeah.
It's close.
That works.
Anyway, so thank you, like I said, for coming. We're really happy to have all these wonderful things offered at the Chaffee, and I learned some really cool things the other day about the railroad and George Thrall Chaffee, who built this for his family. So you'll probably learn stuff tonight about George, maybe. Paul's going, you never know. But if not, I'll tell you at the end. You're welcome to look around if you want later when it's all done. But we're going to try to get everybody out of the building at some point because my son's here too and we have to go to the airport early. So when you go upstairs, if you go upstairs, please forgive the mess because we had a musical theater here. Yeah, and they did The Lion King today. It was really fun, but it's quite a mess up there. And I just want to say one thing before I introduce you guys. Next Saturday we have a concert here, Otter Creek Music Festival. It's their first one in Rutland. It's going to be here. So if people wanted to spread the word or whatever, we really appreciate that. Okay, so without further ado, Connections, Tracks Through Time, celebrating Rutland's railroad legacy. Hit it, Robert Black.
I forget if it's long and short for this grade crossings or what, but anyway, you're here. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming out. This is going to be, I should take this off. My Uncle Don was a conductor on the old CB&Q, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy. He was a passenger conductor, but he was also a freight guy, and he rode in what we called the way car. Anybody hear that term before?
Yes.
What would be the way car? The caboose. It's the caboose. He would sit up in there, watch the trains, and I would work sometimes in the summers. I would work with the guys on vacation, and I would come into the station and do the books for them. But there were also two trains at the end of the day, the one heading towards to Chicago and the other heading westward. And I got to announce, now arriving on track 2 westbound Burlington Zephyr for, Aurora, East Dubuque, and Points West. And it was really fun. And but my uncle, then I would go up and work in the yard office for the whole night. And I would have to count the freight trains. And they had waybill numbers on them. They didn't have QR codes or anything like that. I'd have to walk the yard, rain or snow, and count and make sure all the trains were lined up in the right order. And it was a real joy as an 18-year-old because I'd get to the end of the yard in the middle of the night and all of a sudden I'd hear this, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the boxcar was open and there was a hobo in there. It would scare the living daylights out of me. Anyway, we're going to have fun just for a minute. I'm going to do the introduction here. This is the whistle stop welcome for you. Can you hear okay? Are you doing good? Okay. Paul will come on. He has a much more extensive piece to show, but let me start with this. Here we are at this amazing place, the Chaffee Art Center. And the interesting thing is the Rutland Art Association was founded in 1961. And it had come out of what was originally the Rutland Museum of Art. But they decided that they would change the name. Catherine, I forget, what's her name? Thrun something?
No, you're saying Captain
Nelson,
Nelson.
yeah. They decided to call this the Chaffee Art Center. And Chaffee is an interesting name for this place. If you go back 200 years from 1961 to 1761, you find out some interesting things. The town charter happened to make this name. Does anyone know this simple little historical fact? 1761, Rutland was chartered as a town, and it was some years later when it became actually the city of Rutland. But in this case, there was a governor, and if you know your history, 1761 was 15 years before what? Do the math. What?
Revolutionary War.
Well, 1776, the independence, the Declaration, the things we just celebrated on July 4th, etc. So this was still part of the English colonies, and the name Rutland was given by the governor of this area at the time. And he looked back to a person who was in England. There's the Midlands region of eastern England that has a couple of counties in it. And one of the counties happens to be named Rutland. But because of this guy, and each of these royalty people, there were dukes. There was the first Duke of Rutland, the second Duke of Rutland, and then there was John Manners, who was the third Duke of Rutland. And so comes the name Rutland to here through this little governor's edict. And it's a little known fact. Some people maybe know this, but it's an interesting thing. If everybody says, where's the name Rutland? Was it about deer rutting, or what was it? Well, that's the story about it. The interesting thing here, if you notice this gentleman, one of the things that they have is the most noble order of the Garter. And that was a very important thing for a man of the time, very dapperly dressed. But the noble order of the Garter was all about chivalry. It was about honor, the kind of thing that a leader would have to stand in front of his people and lead. And the chivalry was not only in honor for war and men and business and everything, but it was towards women as well. And I believe this is a time for this to return to this idea in Rutland that maybe we should be more honorable with all of our citizens together. Okay. Back in Rutland, this is an early map from 1885. This is the symbol that all of our fire department firemen wear. And it has two things of facts on it. One is a town, September 7th, 1761. And then it says a city, November 19th, 1892. And in between those years, up till this map was done, Rutland was growing and forming. But one of the things that really changed the town was fire. Fire, burning. Buildings burned down. The main street used to be out here. This was Main Street. And many buildings were here. And some of the fires in those 1800s periods, until the fire department got some new trucks, some new rigs and stuff, the west side of the street burned completely down. This side of the street burned down and caused the opening for the possibility for the Chaffee to show up. So I like to honor the firefighters because today they still live this legacy of the protection of the town. And it's so critical to the development of Rutland that the firemen play a huge role yet today even. The other thing that's really important, it happens to be in a really interesting natural area, this vein of the old calcium carbonate sea bottom creatures, the little sea, whatever, different kinds of animals that were crushed under heat and pressure to form this stone that we call marble. And if you know the story of Redfield Proctor or the town of Proctor or the carving studio in West Rutland, you know about how important stone was and stone carving was to bring immigrants to this area that fueled this country. Italian, Polish, Irish, you name it, pretty much anybody. This is an interesting shot in Proctor, where they're carving these famous columns. These are some of the workers at the time carving these very interesting Corinthian columns there. And these columns became this other structure that we all know today. Does anyone know this building? Have you seen it in the news? There's a lot of stuff about why the architecture of this building is important for the ethics and the morals of what this famous architecture, temple to the law, stands for. But it was carved here. The stone came from Marble, Colorado, was carved here and then shipped, interestingly enough, from here to Washington. But the interesting thing about how it was shipped is it had to go on these kind of devices because you couldn't do it with horses and buggies. And that's where the advent of the steam engine, the ability to make ductile iron and string it out into rails, starts to create this thing that you will hear so much more about in just a few minutes, about why trains are really important to Rutland. The house scale, the industry, all that stuff. The railroads drive Rutland's economic growth. Here's some old maps. You'll see more. There's a couple here you can look over. And it shows this, Sherry has a show here called Threads, and it's all about connections. Like if you think of fabric and stuff. These rails became the interconnecting pieces of this area to Boston, to Washington, to Montpelier, to Burlington, to Brattleboro, to Bellows Falls, and all around. So this is very important. the agricultural products, manufactured work like house scale, all that came into and out of Rutland through the railroad. Very important to the growth of this town. And today, still connected. And so because of that, people got rich and got wealthy. And one guy who owned a lumber company, a foundry, a machine shop, a banker, he was into things like the Playhouse Theater that he owned, which happens to be called the Paramount Theater today. This man, George Thrall Chaffee, businessman, attorney, civic leader, built this place here on the spot where the fire had burned out the other buildings here. Sunny Gables, a Queen Anne Victorian house in 1895. The Belle Epoque, man, this was the great thing. People like George and his wife Melly traveled on the grand tour, and they saw the sights of the world, and they literally brought them back here for us to experience. One, in their architecture, the Syrian arch that's the front here, the kind of floors that are here, the cut stone, and all kinds of aspects, the stairway, that are part of the history of this building thanks to George Chaffee. And you get to see it today because of this building. And so here it is, the Chaffee Art Center. Same basic building that was here. The bedrooms are here, the place is here. But today, the business, the railroads, and art come together in the Chaffee. And we see it in this town. Stone Legacy, Lope's paintings, the murals that are in the public art. This one, the library that was, did anyone know this person? Carved in stone for his stories to teach about the stories of the world. They're throughout this town. The art is living here, and the Chaffee is one of the centers that can keep this alive here.
Who was that?
Julia Dorr, very good, thank you. Go to the head of the class. Oh, you're already at the head of the class. But this is the thing about art in the world, and I believe that art, the kind of the past participle of being, has something to do with the nature of this town and the future of this town. And one of the things that has to do with it is back in history, 2006, there was a project that featured trains called All Aboard Rutland. Combined art and business together. Marianne Goulet, Jim Boughton, and Mary Crowley, famous beloved art teacher here, came up with an idea. Not hearts, not pigs, not horses, not some kind of public art, but trains. And Mike Duvall downtown, the toy maker, made 60 of these train blanks. And artists drew pictures of what these should be as ideas. And Marianne got all the businesses together, 60 of them, to look at an art show in the Paramount Theater. And they all signed up, Casella, Omea, all of them, Heritage, everybody. And they became patrons of the arts for these trains. And there was a huge parade in 2006 that was called All Aboard Rutland. The interesting thing is that I, for some serendipity, acquired this piece made by Jim Boughton and Mike Walker called Peace Train that led this procession of this huge parade in 2006. And it has been making station stops around Rutland as kind of an idea to wake people up. Okay, what's going on here? It went to the Hub Co-works. Megan at the middle school, the principal, has worked with us. It stayed there for a while, the students to do work around it. It moved on to the Grace Congregational Church between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then the Chaffee Art Center had it here for a long period of time during its, some of its shows. And so today, interestingly enough, it has spent the last couple of months in the main hallway of the Rutland Regional Medical Center. And they were so excited to have this there. Hundreds of people have seen this train there, this art piece. What is that? What's it about? Well, there's a little display here, and then all the video monitors in the waiting rooms of all the medical buildings around there show this idea of what this is about. And these are kind of the new conductors in the station stops for this particular train. And so what we're working on with this is a project that I'm calling Compassionate Community, where this art will become a catalyst for bringing people together, just like the rails connected, the trains connect. And the Peace Train led this procession, went to visit Governor Jim Douglas, came back here and is still living today. So get a chance, you can visit that if you want to. Okay, and this is the last little piece. It's only 3 minutes long, so if you'd bear with me for a second.
All Aboard Rutland was a street art and community pride project for the city of Rutland in 2006. While other communities nationwide had chosen to decorate fiberglass animals, Rutland chose an object that is near and dear to Rutland: trains. All Aboard Rutland celebrates Rutland's railroad history. The blank wooden trains were made locally by Michael's Toys on Merchants Row in downtown Rutland, and all of the materials were purchased locally. A fundraiser for arts education programs and a beautification project for Rutland City, All Aboard Rutland was organized by the Downtown Rutland Partnership in collaboration with Omea Industries, the Chaffee Art Center, and the City of Rutland. Peace Train was the signature train for the project and made its debut at a luncheon with the governor and the Rutland County delegation in Montpelier. Its artistic presence and relevant message of peace led the parade in downtown Rutland at the kickoff of the year-long project, which culminated in an auction of the trains at the Paramount Theater, where Omea Industries gave it a home for 5 years. Through Omea's generosity, Peace Train rolled on to its next station stop at the Compass Music and Art Center in Brandon. There, for 10 years, children and adults were inspired by the beauty of its colorful artwork. When the Compass Center closed its doors in 2023, local architect and teacher Robert Black acquired Peace Train and had the idea to use it as a catalyst to revive All Aboard Rutland. Peace Train's fellow engines of art have moved out into the larger Rutland landscape over the past 18 years, some parked in the public eye, while others quietly slipped into more private settings. Today, we seek to rekindle the great spirit of 2006's All Aboard Rutland by once again honoring the rich history of trains and the power of public art to motivate the Rutland community to work together to benefit people of all ages.
If you want to know more about this, see me after this and we can talk about it. We're building a coalition of people to follow this conversation of compassionate community forward using art and business and this time education, so that on the 20th anniversary of this event next year, we would have some kind of public amazing thing happening in Rutland. Thank you.
I taught at St. Joe's for many years. I taught history, but one of the other courses I taught was Intro to Geography. And I used to do a piece on Istanbul, which is like 5,000 years old. And it's amazing how much that city has changed in 5,000 years. If you don't know that, you can actually go to the basements in some of these places and fish in your basement because of the amount of water that was brought in. And the fact that you don't know this, that fish eggs stick to duck's legs, so if they land, the fish eggs come off, and you can actually get fish in your basement. And anyway, it has nothing to do with it. But I'd always ask my students, how much has Rutland changed? And they all laugh, oh, it hasn't changed, it's still the same thing. Then I show them this stuff, and you'll see how much. And this really focuses on how much this city has changed and the impact that the railroad has had upon it. And I know Robert just said about, he just showed you this picture, but I've got some little different aspects of it. This is Rutland in 1885, as Robert pointed out. And if you notice, the main street towards the top there has a pretty good smattering of buildings, but there's more down towards the bottom here. And there's a reason for that. When the main street was built, it was, stupidly to saying, the main street. Because Route 7 wasn't called that, but it was on top of the ridge, which made sense. People were settling there, and then all of a sudden, right about the 1850s or 60s, they started to shift down here. Why? Because of this. This is where your commerce is. This is the downtown Rutland, and I cut this out and cropped it from the other picture you just saw there. That building that you see with the dome, that'll be very prominent in one of these slides coming up here in just a minute. But your commerce is here. Why the railroad's here? Everything shifts. Main Street is no longer important. It is now Merchants Row / Grove Street. Your hotels are there. Your businesses are there. The railroad yard is there. The railroad station is there. How did you get to Rutland? Not at the airport, obviously. It's a long walk. But all of a sudden, now you can get there by train. And the next, this is the other part where I cropped this too. This is the house scale building. And here you see the trackage split there. There's a Y. One leg went down to Bennington. The other went over the mountains to Bellows Falls, which now gives you connections, such as it were, to Boston and New York City. The biggest problem that the Rutland Railroad had right from the very get-go is it didn't go to New York City, it didn't go to Boston, so you had to change. It didn't go to Montreal, although there was a snag that did go. It went out to Ogdensburg. So there's, and Paul, if you want to jump in here anytime, Paul Rodinoni is a member of our club over, and we'll talk about that later. So he may have some impact or insight that I don't. So if you want to jump in, go right ahead whenever you feel like it. Thank you very much. At any rate, you see how it has changed already. Everything's moving down towards the railroad for obvious reasons, businesses, etc. So let's look. There's your dome. Remember I showed you that? Any idea where that is? Well, if you were standing by that dome now, you would be in Walmart. That is basically the Walmart parking lot, Walmart shopping center. So there's a big change right there. I know we're not fishing in the basements yet, but a little bit different. There's looking south from the Meade building. This is the early 40s, 1950s. You can see the amount of traffic, the amount of engines, the River Street Bridge in the background. That tower there is a coaling tower that was used to put coal into steam engines, which ran on coal at this time. In the lower 9 o'clock area, you see there's some whitish color cars there. Those are refrigerator cars. How does a refrigerator car change the city of Rutland? You don't think about this stuff anymore. We all take it for granted. Okay. My mother used to tell me when she was a little girl, she grew up in central Pennsylvania, she was thrilled at Christmas because they always got an orange in her stocking. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. And anyway, she was thrilled at Christmas time because she always got an orange in her stocking. It was the only time she ever had an orange all year. We take that for granted. You can go to any store in the area and buy oranges, bananas. So before these refrigerator cars were available, how hard was it to get fresh fruit, fresh vegetables? There was a video I used to use when I was teaching U.S. history about the Transcontinental Railroad and shipping barrels of oysters from Maryland to California. Impossible before this. Now, with the way that fruit travels, they're picking cherries in Washington and they're on your grocer's shelf. If they pick them today, they're on the shelf by Monday, Tuesday already. So it's pretty fast. And the cars are all computerized now, not like these things. But you get the idea, the commerce is there. You can't really tell. There's an engine near that coaling tower that has a stripe on it, and that was the Whippet, which was Rutland's fast speed, high advertised steam engine. Man, it ran, I know that's why I could date this picture, because it ran from 1939 to 1941 with that marking. And then after that it was gone. And before that it didn't exist. Now we're in the late 1950s, we're looking the other way. This is from the River Street Bridge. You can see the service building. And pick that out, the service building there? Okay. So this is obviously Walmart's parking lot. Okay. The railroad station is almost directly across the street from the service building. It has like a whitish colored triangle up near the top of the brick building there. Behind that, the Meade building, that's still there. Okay. It's amazing. The architecture in the city of Rutland is absolutely gorgeous, going back into the Victorian era. But now we're going to go up one more slide. This is late 40s, early 50s. That's pretty much the same picture, but do you notice a difference there? Pardon me?
No roundhouse.
The roundhouse is gone. Let's back that up just for a second. Look at all the cars and the traffic, the engines, the hubbub, everything else. It's gone, right? This is when the Rutland was closing. They're tearing up the tracks over on by right about the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock pile there is railroad rails. There's a stack of ties there. There's only one engine there. They're moving all this stuff out. They're ripping up the rails. We're going to have progress. Ready to see progress? Progress. Remember W.T. Grants? If you're here long enough. Yeah. So that's what we got in exchange for the railroad yards. Again, this is progress. This is the 1960s. Strip malls was the whole big thing. That was, everybody wanted one of those. We still have it. You might consider it an eyesore, but we still have it. Looking the other way, the house scale building in the 1880s. You see the rough roundhouse, or the turntable here. The tracks split, the industrialization of the house scale plant there. And again, this is more close to the late 40s, early 50s. The house scale company's still there. There's still quite a bit of activity. Again, this is one of the one of the passenger trains coming in. The Rutland Tallow building was just torn down a few years ago. I'm surprised they were able to do that. Although it being a hide and tallow building, I imagine it was a little bit funky when you walked in that place. It might have had a bit of an odor to it after all these years. And of course, this was in the early 80s. Now we're beyond, the Rutland is gone. We now have the Green Mountain Railroad and the Vermont Railroad that's going to service these areas here. Hasn't changed a lot, but again, that building's gone. Now we're going to get into some of the other buildings that were here. This is the old station. It's a beautiful Victorian brick railroad station. It was the hub of the center of Rutland. When you came into Rutland, this building was impressive. This was not some podunk backwater. This was a beautiful station, and the statement was made when you walked out and looked at that. You're downtown Rutland. Okay, we're trying to make a statement here. This is looking the other way. See the Clement Bank building, the station. Obviously there's a trolley there, so we're in the early 1900s. No, you don't see any automobiles around quite yet, mostly horse and buggies. So we're kind of dating this to the late 1890s, early 1900s possibly. But again, it's a showpiece. We're trying to demonstrate and show that Rutland is a beautiful place to go. You could go right across the street to the Bardwell, one of the big ritzy hotels in the area. It was impressive. That was a fire, 1917, I want to say. I could be wrong on that. That's why we don't have the mansard roof on that anymore. That's gone. But there's your postcard view. Now there's an automobile there. So I think that says 1908 on that. I believe that's right. I'm looking at it from an angle here.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, impressive. A nice grassy area there. It's a place to go. It's a destination. Clement Bank on the corner. Grove Street / Merchants Row. Automobile. The Mead Building, which was built in the 1890s. Another impressive building there, business building, offices. This is looking down Grove Street, Merchants Row. Very prominent railroad tracks in the middle, the trolley tracks actually. So the city's changing, right? It's changed quite a bit since those tracks were there. Depot Square, again, right next to the depot. Very impressive, looking down the street. What's your first impression of Rutland when you get off the train and look at that? Pretty nice, huh? What would you think today when you get off the station? That is one of the ugliest stations I have ever seen in my life. And we have it. So you get off the station, and what do you have? The back end of Walmart, tracks, and a parking lot. What a difference between this, go back one, there we go. What a difference between that and that. What's your impression of Rutland?
Not good.
Not much we can do about it now, though, right? And there's Depot Park. This is when the W.T. Grants was there. So our modernization, good or bad, hey, we keep changing. And looking down, there's some nostalgia. Woolworths, Fishman's. Remember when Woolworths was everywhere? It's been replaced. It's now called the dollar store. Not much different, right? It's everywhere. Ubiquitous. This is, oh, come on, help me. I've just lost my mind here. Thank you very much. Center Street. That was it. Tuttle Building, Center Street. Way down the top end, there's a little white building. That's Timco Jewelers. Yep, there's the other side, the Paramount. Some of the other buildings there. Yep. I had a student quite some years ago. We were doing an independent study. He was planning to be a city planner. And he actually married a woman from the Netherlands, and he lives over there now. Haven't seen him for years, so I'm guessing he's still there. And he said the thing to do with Rutland would be to get rid of the mall and turn it into a Victorian era destination. And because of all the buildings and the architecture that's still there. Some of it may have to have the facades stripped off, but it would be, and he's right, putting in pedestrian walks and stuff like that with no parking. And he said you could still maintain the price chopper over in the corner because a grocery store would be necessary, but from the Walmart up from there to that, you wouldn't need it. And you could put all this stuff and put a convention center. Pardon me?
Isn't the Walmart going to move?
If it's going to move, he may have been getting his wish from the Netherlands, I don't know. But he said put a convention center where the Walmart is, and you have the rail connection already. Of course, you have the airport. You can drive here. You have the parking garage nobody uses.
That's a great idea.
Well, yeah, this was 10, 15 years ago. He was telling me this. And I've said this to other people, but nobody listens. So, just like being at home. Oh, I hit the wrong button. There we go. Again, there's the Berwick. This is in the parking pit. There's been some noise about rebuilding a hotel there. Okay, this was the premier hotel in Rutland, which burned. Somebody want to help me with the dates? Early 70s. It's somewhere early 70s, but yep, somewhere early 70s. How about this street? Anybody know where this is? This was just so cool. I had to put this in.
Wales Street.
It is Wales Street. It is Wales Street. Yeah. Buick Franklin Autos. Yep. It's just a really, really neat shot of a street. There's nothing railroady about it, but the traffic, the horse, the tree-lined street, very typical. Meads Falls. We know where that is, right? Going out of town. Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, the Rutland Street Railway Company. This was very prominent as well. You could take the streetcars and move all around town. You could go to Fairhaven, you could go to Pulteney, and you could go party in Lake Bomazene, which was the casino, what else? Park, summer dancing, everything. It was the place to go. And people from New York City would come up to perform here, if you're not aware of that. Neshobe Island, which is in the middle of Lake Bomazene, was a hot spot for many of the entertainers in New York. One of the big people who used to come up here regularly were the Marx Brothers. Mm-hmm.
Walcott, was that his
Yeah, Walcott. Yep, Walcott. He had it. Yep, and it was the Algonquin Club used to come up, spend time in Neshobe. Yep. And rumor has it that Harpo used to like to paint himself blue and jump around the beach and scare people. But I've never seen it. I just read about it. There again, it even says right there, tonight, Bomazene Park, right in the front. So you'd be able to take the trolley and go to Bomazene Park and have a party evening and come back on the trolley, probably for a nickel.
Somebody's orchestra is going to be up there.
Yeah, I could never make out the name.
Yeah.
And I tried blowing it up, and I can't. And if it is, I don't know who it is anyway.
Oh.
But it was probably a minor big band that would have played out there. Here's where we have it. The other change that we talked about a little bit ago is the refrigerated cars. That does make such a huge difference in our diet and our food. There was a Swift meat plant right next door to the the depot station. And they used to bring in fresh beef and pork. And the train cars would be unloaded there. That's why I put the Swift car up there. And all the stores, this is before the big chains, of course. All the local corner stores, mom and pop stores, would be able to get what they wanted from the Swift plant. And of course, bringing in fruit and everything else just really changes the way we live. You just don't realize it. We take everything for granted.
Were they ice?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have that. If you go across River Street Bridge and going west on River Street Bridge and you look down, there was a place there, it was called the Red Moon Saloon. Everybody remember that? That was an ice house. If you look when you look at the bottom, you can see the curved windows used to bring the ice up from Otter Creek. And then there would have been probably a lift of some sort and a rack on the side, and they would have dumped the ice into the hatches. Let me back that up. You can't see it anyway. And there's hatches on the roof there. There are 4 hatches, and you can put ice in there. And with ice and sawdust, it stayed for quite some time. So you'd be able to ship your goods. Now it's all computerized refrigeration. Yep. So these are some of the sites you'd see around Rutland. This was a switcher, an 060. This is wheel arrangement. You see there's 3 wheels on this side, 3 on the other. There's no pilot wheel in the front, and there's no trailing wheel in the back. So this is known as 060 in railroad parlance. This would have been used in the yards. It would have shifted around cars. It was not meant to go from here to Rutland or here to Burlington or here to Bellows Falls or anywhere else. It would have stayed in Rutland for the most part, moving cars around to make other trains longer and take them where they were going. This is one of the bigger ones that was used here. I believe this picture is actually in Bellows Falls, although I haven't been able to date it. But this is a Mikado class. They all had names for the most part. And it's a 482, meaning there are 4 little wheels in the front, 8 drivers, and 2 trailing wheels. And that was one of the bigger engines that the Rutland had that was used for freight hauling for the most part, and occasionally for passenger service.
What era approximately?
Oh, they would have been used from, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, from the mid-20s to the 1950s when they finally got rid of them. Am I right on that?
52.
52?
So people that traveled to Japan understood what Mikado was.
They did. Actually, they were originally made for Japan, which is why they called them Mikado. And of course, during World War II, we called them Mikes. We couldn't call them Mikados anymore. This was the big girl. This is the mountain class. This is back of Evelyn Street, when Evelyn Street still had buildings on it. There's now a bank and a parking garage there, or parking area there. Farmer's market, right? Okay. But this was one of the biggest ones that the Rutland had. It was heavy. It was used for freight. It was used for passenger service. Those funny looking cars that look like butter dishes are dairy milk cars. They're known as Borden cars from Borden Company. They would have hauled that. And milk was a very important commodity on the Rutland because of all the farms and dairy farms around here at the time. No, but they went fast. So they could get to the dairies and the creameries and be processed right away. And then we had the diesel era where we went to these. These were the ones, 1 of 2 that Rutland bought in the early 50s. It's an RS3. RS stands for road service diesel. And this is the 3rd designed by Alco. That's all that means. And the caboose in the green and yellow there next to it. And I'll show you one that's in really bad shape that needs fixed in a little bit. There's an interesting picture. This is one of the Vermont Railway SW 1500s, probably 1960s, early 70s. Anybody want to take a guess where you would be if you were riding that engine right now? No, you're not Hannaford. Yeah, Price Chopper. You would be right in the middle of Price Chopper. So that's a little different too. But and the owl is still there in the building, but unfortunately the white part's gone. I mean, I know people are against smoking. I'm not advocating anybody smoking, but that is history. Those, I call them ghost signs. You look, you find them all over the place. And I'll challenge you if you're looking, because I don't have a picture of it. Sometime when you're downtown Rutland, see if you can find a Montgomery Ward sign on the building. Mm-hmm. It's still there. Of course, Montgomery Ward is long gone, but Monkey Ward sign is still there. Yeah. So this is what we got now. This is back a price chopper from the Railroad Street Bridge. That's what's left of the railroad yards behind price chopper. So we've changed, right? Quite a bit in all those years. All right. This is the center of Rutland Railway Station, home of the Rutland Railway Association and Museum. I'm a member, so is Paul over here. We have quite an extensive collection of railroad artifacts. If you ever get a chance, we are open every Saturday from 11 to 3. Stop in, visit. We have cases. Oh, there's the outside of the station again. It needs work. We're the caretakers, as it were. And we're just a bunch of guys who like trains, so we're not like real well heeled for money-wise, but we've been managing to keep it up. Sometimes it's a challenge. There's some of our artifacts. When you walk in the door, it looks pretty much like it did when the station was being used. It was preserved by the Carris reels. Henry Carris was a huge collector of railroadania. They used it for offices for a while. They added on in the back where our layout is, and they used that for their offices. And then when we got it, Henry also collected tools, which this is after his death. They sold the tools. We inherited the railroad stuff with the promise that we would take care of his collection. And we've had it since the mid-90s. And it becomes a challenge. Myself and Paul here have been trying to work on some of this stuff. If you look, there's a plate there. Can you see the dinner plate, soup bowl? That is an original soup bowl from the Rutland Railway dining cars. And we decided after having some things stolen from us last summer that we put it under lock and key because that plate's worth about $5,000. Yeah, and we don't have an alarm system. Don't tell anybody. But we yell loud. We're just a small group of guys, and this collection is some amazing stuff that's in there. So if you get a chance, stop down. And if you like to watch trains go around, we do have a layout. We have two different scales. We have an end scale which says do not touch because that's being worked on at this point. And actually what the group from the end scalers are trying to do is make a end scale replica of the Rutland yards. And they've got a really good start on it right now. They're doing a really good job. And the other side, we're doing some maintenance on it now, but everything runs. I'll give you some ideas of what's there and everything. The trestle that you see there was scratch built by a gentleman who's passed away a few years ago, who was an aerospace engineer. He measured it, built it in his basement in 3 different pieces, brought it in, put it in. That's how good he was. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So, and our other baby is this one. This is a 1924 Rutland Railway caboose number 45. It was actually built here in Rutland. It is a unique piece. There's other Rutland cabooses here and there. There's one in Massachusetts. There's one at the National Steamtown Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania that's a Rutland one. But this is the only one that I'm aware of that was actually built here in Rutland at the Rutland shops. It's in bad shape, as you can see by the picture on the side over here. That's the side that gets the sun all day long, and it's battered, it's bad. And we've been trying to get a grant to help us take care of it. It really needs work desperately. So rather than lose it, I don't know what we're going to do with it. You want to buy a caboose? No? I think, yeah, that's the end of that there. So that's it, folks. So, do we have questions of all kinds? Yes?
So what happened?
What?
What happened
What happened to what?
to bring about all the change that you just showed us?
Well, it's progress. I mean, it's the railroad that brings the progress, and that's the big change. Now, you can see it too, because where's our shopping center? We have it here, right? And where else do we have shopping here in Rutland? You don't have to come here anymore. You can go south of town. You can go east of town, rather. As we spread out, we have the automobile. So that was one of the knocks too, because if you're going to Rutland to go shopping, well, there's 3 different places you can go. And when the mall was out here south of town too, that was, another way to go. Now, It's spread out all over.
So when they ceased using freight trains to bring produce and stuff like that, were the roads and the transportation able to take over and deliver as much?
Things are changing again because of the technology. If people get mad when they're waiting for a train to go by, but one of those huge box cars that are filled with whatever it might be, that equals like 2 or 3 different tractor trailers that are on the road. And what now, like I mentioned, especially with produce, they can bring in produce to a warehouse from like say Washington State picking cherries. They can get them into Albany within 36 hours and into like whose distribution, I think Press Choppers is down in that area, but I could be wrong on that, whatever it is. But then they can be distributed. So like I said, if they pick them today, they're there on Sunday, they're in the market by Tuesday. That's pretty good. So I don't know if that answers your question or not,
Well,
because
yeah,
it's
so what they did was they just cut out that last leg from, say, Albany to Rutland?
pretty much, yeah, because now instead of bringing a tractor trailer all the way from wherever it might be that's loaded with fruit or vegetables or meat or whatever, now you can put them on a refrigerated car
They still need
and it's faster. And you see all the container cars now. The biggest problem with them is they don't send the containers back. And now they're being turned into motels and storage units and apartments, and innovation with that too.
So
So
all the pickers got deported.
yeah, well, no, we're going to put all the Medicaid people on there picking fruit now.
No, right.
Yeah, I can hardly wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Tell me about, was it Mortimer Proctor, in order for him to move his product, did he buy a railroad?
A lot of these guys were part owners in the railroad. I'm not sure how much Proctor may have owned, but I'm sure he had a piece of it. Yeah. You got a question?
Yeah, I've seen your layout that you guys have, it's pretty cool. And I just wondered about inspiration from it, specific or general or...
As I mentioned, the end scalers are trying to recreate the Rutland Yard, and the HO scale is pretty much freelance. We're not, although we're not doing like deserts and anything like
Right,
that.
I mean, it kinda
It's probably
looks
pretty
like
much
a
New
New
England
England
skiing, yeah.
town, yeah.
But we're not focusing, we're not trying to copy anything in particular in that
Yeah.
respect. Yeah. You had a question over there too.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some references to Rutland and the railroad being about marble, but it seems to me like more than that, that Rutland was a regional transportation hub for all sorts of things coming, produce going into the big cities and, farm equipment coming up and then spreading out.
Yeah, I should probably, if I'm going to keep working on this PowerPoint, places like Rutland Fire Clay used to ship stuff out of here regularly. They were big. Rutland Patch was part of the Fire Clay. How many other businesses were here that disappeared over the years? Quite a few of them. That
Do you know anything about the layout that was in the Queechee Toy Museum that was there?
yeah, a little bit.
And,
What do you want to know about that?
Well, kind of the same question, the inspiration for it. I mean, I noticed
Yeah.
they had a ski slope there, sort of like Hillington. They had quarries there. Also kind of curious even what happened to it. What
Yeah.
happened to it.
That was a disaster from the beginning. Many years ago, I've been a member of this club almost since its inception. And many years ago, we were approached by the guy who had that layout built, and he wanted us to build him a layout. And we kind of said, okay, and then we laughed because we couldn't get together on what color to paint a boxcar half the time we're going to build a layout for this guy. So we didn't. And he approached 2 of the best known model railroaders in the country, Malcolm Furlow and Dave Frary, I believe were their names. And these guys have written books, they've had articles in magazines. I don't know how much he paid them for that. And it was innovative because it actually had some of the buildings in Whitehall. This old Silver Diner was on that, if you can remember that place. And it meandered through. He had a sort of a downtown Rutland. He had a bit of the mountain there. And then it went around the back. So you changed as you're coming around. It was neat that way because you're in spring and summer. And as you go around the corner, it was fall. And you're around the other corner, you're in the winter. So it was really neat the way it was done. But I had the opportunity to see that many, many times. The ski lifts never worked. The switches that were put in there were soldered in, so you could never switch anything. And a lot of the track was underneath, which made it really hard to clean. And when you have the engines running around with oil and everything else, you really have to keep the tracks clean. So it never ran very well. Plus, I'm being picky here, the guy didn't know enough, and the stuff he was running on it was junk, and it didn't run very well either. That ended up over at Queechee, last I heard, and then it was in the antique mall, and they were charging money to see that. And I got to see it. I don't know, there was nobody around it. I didn't realize I was supposed to pay. It was like a quarter or something like that. And there was nobody upstairs. So I just looked at it and I said, I've seen this before. So I thought it was a different layout. I don't know where it is now. No, I don't. I don't. It would be interesting if you took that and managed to get the switches changed and run something decent on it. It might be viable. Because the artwork that these guys did, I mean, these guys are pros. It was beautiful. It really was. And some of the stuff they did was very innovative. You have a question? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I have a little bit of information.
Okay.
So, I got a call from a man who's the president of the railroad something in Vermont recently. Anyway, he wasn't able to come. They weren't able to come. But he was telling me that George Thrall Chaffee was the head of the Railroad Commission. And the other interesting thing is the train station at Walmart back then was called Alphresia Train Station, and that was after Alice, Frederick, and Charlotte, which are his children, because he had a farm named Alphresia as well. So I thought that was really cool. So he was really obviously connected to the railroad. And then when you were talking about what is the railroad, what did it bring, right, JP? Like, so George built the Paramount in 1912, opened in 1914, and he did it because he loved the arts and he wanted to kind of rub elbows with those, right? So the railroad would bring, obviously, these famous actors up. And his grandson Keene tells the story that when he was 9, he came here for dinner after the Paramount, or the Rutland Playhouse back then. And he sat next to Harry Houdini. So Harry Houdini's been here for dinner. So you're talking about Harpo Marx, I'm sure, because they were friends, that Harpo's has been here as well.
Probably.
Yeah. So I think it's really cool that connection. I didn't know that until like a couple days ago.
Ah, that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that too? This idea of the word connection. Just want to reiterate that there's a show here that's all about connections, threads. It takes some time to look at it. But the idea of the railroads in the past, or this thing where the stories from an amazingly deep and studied individual here to bring the past alive to you, connects through the imagination to these things. If you go see the layout at the museum, it's like you can, through your imagination, find the story that's in there, or these pictures. Oh, wait, I see the service building. Oh, wait, I see the Mead building. It's still here. The architecture has a memory. So now, through your imagination, something else is possible. And so my thought about this is the connection thing, where this work we're doing with Compassionate Community, with the peace train that will be next year 20 years old, brings with it its story from Jim Boughton and Mike Walker. And if you go to see, I saw Mike Duvall today at Speakeasy, he has got stories. But here's the interesting thing. The peace train is making station stops around, and it will join with the high school, the art teacher. Part of the things for the children of today is to look at this art object and use their imagination to write a story. Where would you go today on this train? What is your journey today? Are you George Thrall Chaffee and his wife? Are you taking a visit to the Vancouver? Or where would you go on this train through your imagination and write a story like that? And we're trying to bring the past alive, really, to have it live in the world today through our children who are spending a lot of time just on their phones. But let's get in our imagination and do some other things.
Along the lines of what you're saying there too, not only are you maybe Chaffee heading to Vancouver somewhere, but you might be some Italian immigrant coming here looking for work. And it's your first time out of the country. You're come from Ellis Island, and you're heading to West Rutland to work in the quarries, or to carve, or whatever. So there you whole different thing too. And while we're on that, you mentioned this before. If you haven't been there, it's not far. In West Rutland, how many of you been to the carving studios out there? It's amazing when you look and you can see and go in the building and see some of the old pictures. And you were talking about the shells, talk about millions and millions of years of mollusk shells.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to a clam bake, and for one Saturday, and how many shells people have from clams that are in a pile somewhere, now multiply that millions of years and millions of days, millions of years, and all that pressure from the glaciers coming down, compressing it all and turning it into marble. When you look at that quarry over there, and if you haven't walked out, walk out to where some of the quarry's holes are. The quarry goes a mile beyond the last hole that I think you can go to, all the way down to the stoplight in West Rutland underground. So it is very impressive, very
In your
impressive.
imagination, you could think of it, that was the bottom of the ocean,
It was.
these sea
Yep.
creatures. And
Yep.
so today, it got lifted up by the geologic forces. I was the chairman of the board there for a long time. And it pushed this stuff up to the surface so we could get it here in this marble run all the way down to Danby Mountain,
Yeah.
where this imperial marble is.
Yep.
And if you push away the sludge that's on top of the marble that got pressed with heat and pressure, turned white. If it didn't have enough heat but had pressure, it was black, like champagne black. And further to the west of here is the stuff that was on top of it that slid off and became these sedimentary layers, which became slate. So there's the
Yep.
Marble Valley, the Slate Valley, but it's all geologic time.
Yeah,
There's a
it's pretty
teaching in
amazing.
this whole place here. You just have to look. That's a great idea to go out there and see
Yeah.
that. Amazing.
I used to take my geography classes over there when I taught that. It was only a house coming a jump from St. Joe's. And you could stand there and I'd point at the mountains and you realize these were islands, what you're
Yes.
looking at here. You're in the bottom, you're looking up. And these are mountains. And it's just, I mean, they don't put 6 and 8 together until you're standing there looking at it and go, yeah, okay, I get it. But millions and millions of years of shells that underneath you there. So, pretty impressive, yeah.
I just have a question, might be a little off topic, but is there some type of pattern by which the conductors use when they ring those whistles coming through a city?
That's a question for this gentleman here. You know that answer.
Yes, there's a very elaborate schedule of whistles. And you alluded to the
Yeah.
crossing room. It's long, long, short, long.
Yeah.
And, 2 shorts means the train's going to start moving now. And the list is like this long. And they're pretty universal.
Every day at 11:40 or so, if you park down by the train station, you can hear the train way out at Castleton.
Wow.
And then you can hear the next one, and you can kind of hear it coming in. And it crosses the
Some of
thing.
them are so faint,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's,
and that's great, because I live near the train track
You-
here in Rutland, and it's so gentle, it's just
probably don't want to disturb you when you,
really hammering on that.
They do. And when it gets close, it crosses that new crossing there by where the Social Security was. You can hear it's almost here, and then you see it come around the bend of the Brock building there. And it's like, oh, it's like magical moment, right? And when it comes in, it gives a little sound with its bell and whistle, and when it's about to leave, it reverses the process, and you can hear it going away.
Yeah.
A lot depends on which way the wind's blowing.
yeah, that too, exactly.
At my house in East Wallingford, I can hear the trains up here in Rutland. The wind is just right.
And about an hour from now, you can go
13
down and
miles.
experience the evening train coming back from New York.
Yeah, well, at the station, we have the Amtrak comes through every Saturday, goes one way and the other way. So we're right there. You can get the chance to get a really good look at it at that
We
spot.
tell visitors that we arrange that just for them.
That's right. We do.
So
I always thought it was to keep people off the track. You know how kids, we used to play on the track.
Sure.
Walk
Oh,
the
sure.
tracks and
put
everything.
pennies on there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then my parents told us that by the time we see a train, it's too late to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They can't
too late.
stop.
That's right.
No, not too easily.
So I have a question for you all here. Hearing these stories, especially Paul's amazing stories of the history of Rutland, the changes and stuff, anybody have a little light bulb go on or some thought came to you that you hadn't thought of before tonight, but by being here you heard something that touched you in some way? Anybody have something like that, little revelation or idea that showed up for you? Like, did you have something that,
Well, when I was little, my father loved the trains, and so there has a connection for me with my father. But he, it
Yeah.
wasn't an everyday thing. It was just.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, the girl told me, my father, he would own a Snapper Ram. I don't know if you guys ever remember that. but they had Roxy's, and he were partners, and they would take the truck over to Bombazine and go to the dance halls and all that. As you
Yeah.
may well know.
I'll give you another story while we're talking about stuff. The Rutland went down to Bennington and then went to Chatham, New York. And it was known as the Corkscrew Division because it kind of meandered around like this. And the conductors, when they brought passengers up through, they used to tell them that Bennington had 5 different monuments. You know, the Bennington Monument, the battle monument that's there? Because they'd say, well, there's one. And then they'd go around the corner and say, and there's one.
You know, the thought that I had from looking at your slides is how beautiful Rutland was.
It was.
I mean, it
It
had
was.
such charm.
Yep.
And it definitely has, it is pretty now, but there was something special back
Yeah.
then.
Well, according to my old student, it still could be. It's still there. The buildings are still there.
I loved your idea, because in front of Walmart, they could even keep Walmart, but put a new front that almost looked like Chatham, Cape Cod. Little shops, just make
Yeah.
you
Well, that's
walk it
what-
up
yeah.
like you're in shops,
Yeah.
but it would stay Walmart.
Yeah.
Just to charm, bring the charm back.
Well, that's what he was pointing out too, is this is, like I said, 15 years ago. Look at all the empty stores in Rutland, he'd say. That hasn't changed. There's still quite a few
But
empty
it's
stores in
like a
Rutland.
movie set. When you're
Yeah.
downtown and you look at the buildings, it's
Oh, yeah.
like a movie set.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. Those the Victorian era from roughly 1840s, 50s to the early 1900s. Those buildings are
You
gorgeous.
also reference Brand, I think, I don't know if you mentioned Brandon, but the pigs and the things that are painted and Warren Kimball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
auctioning. Maybe the arts could be connected to the money you need to preserve some of, you could make a connection
Well.
next year where we're kind of going to gather up some of this money, even move one of the cars to the Rutland Library, bring things together for kids.
That's the
Yeah.
next place Peace Train is gonna go,
Oh,
is
really?
to the library. And I did talks for Rutland Rotary and Rutland South Rotary, and they're rolling out a program to finance something for this year and next year, like Project Vision, but to bring all these groups together to have a
Even
common
the school
purpose.
groups, lesson plans.
That's what we're working on.
Yep.
And the interesting thing as an architect and a planner is this idea where origin and destination. The Chaffee is a destination, but it's also an origin. And Center Street connects right down to what used to be called Main Street Park, where the new gazebo is, right? And so if you were to create a destination down here along beautiful Center Street with the Paramount, this has been done in many other towns, not just like Church Street in Burlington, but even better than that, where you have Nicollet Mall in Minneapolis still has buses and vehicles, fire trucks, whatever, and pedestrians. So if you were to create a park at the destination end, right at that intersection, instead of all the parking, just give up a little bit of, make something beautiful there.
Yeah.
You would start to, and we're gonna work on this. That's
Yeah.
what this project is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, and along those lines, you were talking about the facade across the Walmart there. If they would ever do anything like this and all these empty storefronts, you're going to have people coming in, and you could put, well, okay, just for an example, I've spent quite a bit of time in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and it's Civil War Mall, okay, but there's like toy stores, candy stores, things like that we've got a smattering of here, but we don't have the traffic. Now, this place is, you're talking about Gettysburg, there's thousands upon thousands of tourists go there every day. But if we had something that would bring people here, those shops could be revitalized, and who knows what they would be at this point.
We already have
could
the
work.
history of the stories too, if you think of,
A question way over there then.
Hi.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Have you guys thought about, just kind of giving a general consensus of how do you guys perceive the graffiti on the trains now? And do you think that that could ever be embraced into a future collaborative effort?
Interesting. What do you think, Juan? We got artists here. Hayden, where's Hayden today? Oh, yeah. What about that idea for younger people, especially that if you go to Brooklyn, Banksy or some of the other stuff where my son used to hang out, there are tags on the walls, but they're not disturbed. They're not gang tags per se, but there are like some of the train art behind Price Chopper.
There's quite a bit of graffiti on the trains that's,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have an extensive background in graffiti graffiti and street art, and there are quite a lot of beautiful pieces on the trains that are here. And one of my ideas that I've had for well over a decade was to try to figure out how to connect all of the train lines together. But a lot of what people do across America is they will sit and watch the trains go by and actually look at the graffiti on the trains.
That's interesting.
And they will sit in parks next to the railroad lines and watch them. And that, in particular, like Oklahoma, Texas, we're talking like big prairie country, but because of the centralized location of this hub up here so close to so many big cities, which is a lot of where, major graffiti and street artists, all kind of cycle and circle through. So one of my things was, this is like total pipe dream. I was like, wow, I wish Rutland could have actually like the first graffiti train art school. Because there's a hub here.
That's interesting.
If that was ever
That's an interesting point.
that could be a really big thing.
There's an artist in
Interesting
New York
thing.
City
There
called
you go.
Swoon, who goes out and tags buildings in different ways, but she works with communities to do just that.
But not necessarily on trains.
Not on trains.
I've worked with Swoon for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, not on trains, but you can do it on
You
trains.
can do it on trains. She works predominantly with wheat paste, which is mostly in very site-chosen specific places. I used to run the Alley Gallery down the street, and I had an art show in 2018-19 called My First Street Art, and it was a lot of graffiti street artists from New York that I brought up here to help kind of introduce this area to the things that I've already been doing in New York since 2005, 2006. And so I've seen a lot of the changes, and that was just one thing that I, in particular, wanted to meet everybody here who were interested in trains to see if that was a concept you guys would even entertain.
We're off on a tangent here with your graffiti. I'm going to add to that. Have you been to Quebec City?
I have not.
Oh,
I've seen a lot
the
of
murals that they
artists
did in
that
Quebec City. If Rutland could do that, that would be amazing. If you've never been to Quebec City, I don't know how many years ago, but they had artists come in and paint scenes of what the city looked like in the 1700s. And it's amazing. The murals are just amazing. They're beautiful. And that could be done here. I'm not trying to be nasty, but a giraffe in Rutland? No, sorry.
So why?
Not exactly.
I'm pretty sure I met whoever started the other day.
Yes.
I think a good idea for one of your future trains is to recreate some of the graffiti on one of those trains.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Part of this compassionate community has to do with combining, like in 2006, the Old Board Rutland was business and art. And today, we're working with the schools to have education be a component that touches down into the other levels, like you're teaching at the different schools too. So this year, and if anybody's interested, we should talk more about how we can actually do something from tonight. It was a nice talk, but now let's do something with it, right?
Yep.
So I'd take names or contact points. We're going to have a compassionate community conversation group that's already meeting. There's several people involved in that. And we'll take these ideas and see if we can make them happen. This is how it starts, right?
Yeah, and come visit us at the station every Saturday, 11 to 3. Where is it? You can't get there from here. Wow, yeah. It's on Depot Lane. Okay. It's before you go under the bridge going west. There's what, a church there on the corner now? I forget what the church is.
Yeah, it's hard to tell that it's a church, but it's
Yeah.
just a couple of buildings past the town hall.
Yeah, so you go, yeah, past the town hall, left
There's a
turn.
historic marker.
There's a historic marker right there that gets you to the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah. And it sits down there on the left-hand side when you look like you're going into Caris Reels is on one side there. You don't cross the main tracks. Yeah, you're going to cross one track. Yeah, you are good. Yeah, because it's a Y there, my mistake. Yeah, you will.
It's on
Yeah.
the left after.
Yeah.
This is
Question.
very auspicious. Today's Friday, tomorrow they're open.
Yeah, yeah.
Just an observation in terms of integrating the railroad into your streetscape. If you go to Ashland, Virginia, or Southern Pines, North Carolina, CSX was right through the middle of both those towns, and those two towns have reoriented their shopping to face the tracks.
Wow.
So it makes it much, the railroad, in other words, has become a focal point of the urban activity.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Oh, this is very exciting. You guys have been an amazing audience, and these are good questions. And I think we should thank Paul and Sherry for this incredible.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.